All right, guys, fans can't wait to see this next man back in action. Finally, he's got an opponent, and he's coming against Daniel Rodriguez, UFC Fight Night on August 28th, which is going to be 29th here in Australia. The Motown phenom himself, Kevin Lee, back on Submission Radio. Welcome back, man. It's been a while, Kevin. I know maybe people can't see it, but it's a pretty nice room. You look like you're in some kind of penthouse suite.
Yeah, it's all right. You know, I haven't been in the media too much and kind of shied away from the public, but I'm still doing all right for myself. You know, I ain't too bad.
Well, dude, let's talk about this crazy roller coaster that you've been on. First of all, I mean, the fight gets moved from July to August because of an injury you were dealing with. Then we saw Sean Brady was forced to withdraw due to injury. Then you challenged the division. You go, anyone with balls, step up. You directed it towards Mike Perry and Belal. You wanted them to jump in. Now you've actually got a fight locked in. Someone actually agreed to fight you on August 28th. I mean, that would have been super, super stressful.
Yeah, it's been frustrating to say the least. You know, my main hope was just that I get to fight before the summer is up. Really, I've been in training camp for so long, and before that, dealing with all these injuries, 2 ACL surgeries. So it really set me back for a long time, and I just been itching to fight. So me getting injured the first time versus Sean was unfortunate. I had to deal with another injury on top of that. But then him getting injured after that, that was the frustrating part. But I asked for anybody with balls, and I'd be damned if Daniel didn't show up. And this dude, after looking into him, to be honest, I didn't know who he was at first. But once I looked into him, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this dude, he's definitely got the balls to get in there and throw in a good scrap.
Yeah, shout out to Daniel Big Balls Rodriguez. But I wonder, were you bummed out that Mike Perry and Belal couldn't do it? Obviously, those were the bigger names of the guys you wanted. And did the UFC approach you about those guys at all?
Yeah, I'll give it to Belal. He actually said that he would take the fight, but he wanted it in September. So, you know, I understand how those things work. You want to, especially for somebody to get ready for a fight against me, they want to make sure they got a full training camp. So I understood that part, and, you know, respect to him for actually offering at least to take the fight. But, you know, Mike Perry would have been a good one. That would have been a good name. Honestly, it would have been a softball, and I was kind of looking for a softball. I ain't had one yet in my career, and Perry would have been that, but he didn't want to give it to me. So, you know, me and him, I lost a lot of respect for the man after that. You know, I asked for that fight in May. He said, give him a little bit more time. So I moved on and wanted to fight Sean Brady in July. He said he needed a few more weeks other than July, but then August 28th rolls around and he still ain't say nothing. So, you know, I lose a lot of respect for the man. And, you know, I say one thing, and that's going to be the end of it between me and him. He can't never say he's from Michigan again. If I hear anything come out of his mouth that he from Flint, that he from Michigan, man, we gonna have some serious problems. There ain't gonna be none of that picture taking and handshaking when he see me. That's not how we get down from where I'm from.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but don't you dare say you're from Michigan. No, I'm kidding. What I was gonna say, because he's kind of having
Florida man.
He was having a rough run, and he was kind of saying that, like, you know, I'm gonna leave everything to my coaching staff. This is out of my hands. But you didn't buy that as the reason.
I mean, the man doesn't even have a coaching staff. You mean leave it to his girl? And if it's on his girl's decision, well then, I really lose a lot of respect, you know. So, you know, best of luck to him. Best of luck to him. I hope he do something. But, you know, to me, if you're not stepping up and you don't want to fight, then get the fuck out the way and let somebody else get in here. Do what you do, but get the fuck out the way. You holding up some other kid's dream that want to be in here. So, you know, I ain't got no respect for it.
You mentioned how you wanted sort of like a softball, and here you got Rodriguez. And I mean, for anybody who can look into him, this guy's far from a softball. He's got a 2-fight win streak. He beat Mike Perry, by the way. Preston Parsons, he won as well. Do you kind of see him as one of the tougher matchups out of all the guys you were looking at fighting for August 28th?
Yeah, absolutely. He's tougher than any of the other guys that I was calling out. It just seemed to be my luck of the draw, always get the tough ones. So, you know, a guy who had 200-something street fights, he says, and then, you know, a lot of Muay Thai experience on top of getting into MMA. You know, I don't underlook those things. You know, when he talks about, like, fighting in prison and all this, I don't underlook that. That's just as relevant to me as somebody who's had 200 amateur boxing fights.
Really?
In fact, I think it's even more relevant because it's a street fight. It's anything goes. It's more like MMA than boxing is. Boxing has, if you take an amateur boxing fight, a lot of that is point fighting. A lot of that is you got the headgear, you got 16 ounces, you got a ref in there. For him, he's fighting in a place where nobody's even going to stop the fight. So I take that very serious, and I think he has a lot more experience than people give him credit for.
Do you think that because of all the experience that he's had in being in fights and being able to keep his composure, that's why he's had this much success in the UFC so quickly, being able to take on experienced guys and get these wins?
Yeah, I think it's a different mindset that you got to get comfortable with when you really embrace street fighting. And the person I kind of look to for that is, you can ask Clarissa Shields. After her first MMA fight, she said it was a lot more like a street fight than any type of boxing match. Because when you in there, you're not necessarily thinking about the ref. You know that the ref is there, but you can get choked out, you can get put to sleep, you kind of fighting for your life a little bit more. And to me, that's more like a street fight. So I think a lot of people that he's fought before have underestimated that, and they just look at it as, he's a little bit slower. His technique isn't always there, but his heart and his mind is what's going to get him through a lot of it.
Well, even though he's maybe not the biggest name, you've obviously done your research. You know a lot about him. So when you look at him, technically wise, how do you feel you match up against Daniel?
I think he does some things very good. He does a lot of basics very good. And if you overlook that, then he's going to light you up all night. But for me, I got like a much more complete skill set. I can wrestle a lot more. I can grapple a lot more. I can kick. I can box. I can do all those things that he can do, and even more so. I think the difference is going to be who's going to be the most well-rounded fighter. It's not just going to be a pissing match and us going in there and just showing our heart.
Man, you brought up this ACL stuff, so we got to get into it just quickly. I mean, anytime you hear ACL and injuries, you always freak out because you hope that, 100% recovery can be made and it could be quick and speedy. But it's always something that fans worry about. I mean, take us into it. What exactly happened? What kind of surgeries did you have? And how bad was it? Like, how bad were those knees?
Yeah, I had a full ACL tear in April of 2020. Surgery was in May of 2020. And then coming back and recovering after that, there's a long recovery process. And about 3 months into the recovery process, I started walking around and started feeling a little bit better, and tore my other ACL on my right knee in about July, and had the surgery in August. So the 2 complete ACL tears, but 2 total reconstructions on them. And coming off that process of learning how to turn on the muscles again and reactivate my whole system, I feel like my legs have gotten a whole lot stronger, and my body's been. You kind of almost have to be more in tune with your body in order to heal from that. And I can see why so many people at the top have gone through ACL surgeries and come back better than they were before. George St. Pierre did it. Conor McGregor did it. A lot of people have gone through these big surgeries and come out better. And I can see why it takes a different level of focus, and it takes a different level of understanding of how your body works. So I feel like I've done that, and I've done that for a couple months now, and I'm ready to come back.
Dude, it takes that, but also it takes incredible mental toughness to be able to tell yourself, hey, listen, I'm going to be able to get through this period and come back and compete at a high level. I mean, at any point when that second ACL went, were you just like, I could imagine you were just sort of down in the dumps over it. Did you ever consider even the fact that you might not come back? Did you ever think, man, I'm done with this, I can't be bothered with this? What were the thoughts going through your head? Because that's not something a normal person could even deal with.
The second ACL was a little heartbreaking. It was a little more frustrating than anything. But honestly, it was the rib injury that I got getting ready for the Sean Brady fight that made me really question a lot of stuff. That made me question, like, damn, is my body even ready to come back from this? Anybody who's had a serious rib injury knows that's one of the most debilitating ones. That one hurt a lot worse than the ACLs even. And it was more like a all-encompassing body. You know, when I just hurt my knees, it was kind of, I understood that it was just my legs. The rest of my body didn't hurt. But hurting my rib after coming back after these the surgeries almost made it feel like, is my body gonna ever be ready again? And it took about a month before I felt like my body could handle the stress of fighting again. And that was more of the mental test for me.
What kind of pulled you through it? Like you were saying that, and I know how you feel when you have like one injury and you're like, oh, I'll just get through this one. And then another one, you're like, oh man. And then you have one more and you're like, dude, you have some pretty dark thoughts. Will I ever be the same? Who am I anymore? And all that kind of stuff. But so what was it that pulled you through it when the rib happened and got you through that?
A couple things that to be honest with you, I don't really want to talk about too much. So a personal, a very personal thing kind of got me through it, where I had to look at the outside for inspiration. I had to look at the outside for, why am I doing this? And something kind of happened in my life to give me that motivation. And honestly, it's what I've been looking for ever since my last fight, ever since I fought Charles Oliveira. And I was in there and I was looking for, why am I doing this? I really didn't get that answer until after that second rib injury, or after the rib injury. That's when I kind of got my answer. But I know I'm being kind of vague about it, but it's not. It's hard to say without saying.
It's interesting though, because you mentioned how you were looking for it after the Oliveira loss, but it was only after that rib injury that you found the answer. So is that kind of like a weird silver lining to the whole horrible thing that you went through?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when the rib first happened, I spent about 3 days, kind of pissed off at the world, down on myself, all that, just kind of mad as fuck. But then when I got my answer, it just glued everything together for me, and it made it all make sense. Because at that time I thought, okay, I'm coming back to the first biggest event since all this COVID stuff happened, and it's kind of like the signal of the end of that pandemic and all this. And then you get that second little drop, you get that second little wave. It's like, fuck, like, all right, I guess this is just what my life is going to be like. I guess I'm just going to be injured forever. I guess I'm going to heal from this and then come and break my arm or do something crazy like that. But I saw a silver lining at the end of it, and it made it all make a whole lot more sense and make better.
It's interesting because it sounds like, despite, you having so many fights already, fighting for a belt and stuff, it sounds like you got a completely new perspective on fighting. So what is your motivation for fighting these days? Because it sounds like you just got a brand new one very recently.
Yeah, it's a lot of my fights have always been mental, I think anybody who's followed my career and actually seen me fight, you haven't really seen me beat up. You ain't really seen no man really beat me. It's more, you've seen me lose, for sure. You've seen me lose, but it's a lot of my battles have all been mental. So for this last chapter, this last year and a half to be strictly a mental fight, I think it'll make the actual physical fighting so much better. When I step in there on August 28th, it's going to be a celebration before the first punch is thrown. It's just a celebration of coming back after everything that I've been through, and realize that you can keep going and I can keep pushing and keep moving. And the physical battle is going to be kind of easy. It's going to be a fun part.
I was thinking about your career recently, Kevin, and I was thinking it's so impressive because when people go through your record, you've literally fought some of the best, guys are going to become champion. And the other thing about it is, you've been fighting from such a young age. You've been out on the world stage for such a long time, and you've been through the scrutiny of people saying, oh, Kevin, he lost, he's no good. And then you've been through the highs of people going, oh, Kevin's the next big thing. And then you got up to that title shot, it almost happened. And you're still super young now, and you've had like a life's worth of knowledge and things happen to you in such an early part of your career. Do you ever think about the fact that how crazy it is that you've been able to survive this journey from such a young age and still be here and fighting at this super high level, and then also fighting these new perspectives about your career that you didn't have before.
Yeah, in a way, it's very strange for me, because it almost feels like I get a new chance to start all the way over. Even though I have had this big history of being in the UFC for so long, and people have seen me grow throughout this whole time, it almost feels like, one, I've never really made a serious championship run. This time is spent mostly kind of growing and just fighting and just fighting and without much time to stop and really sit back and plan and execute a serious route. So I don't think I've really made a championship run. You know, I had that title shot, but that was just kind of something that just fell in my lap through talking shit and kind of gaining a lot of popularity. But it's not something that me as a competitor put together yet. So for me to just start this, it seems like I'm starting a new chapter on a whole different career. But like you said, it has been a long one, and it has been like, for me to still be young and still my body still be able to do this. One of the silver linings about coming after all these injuries is I realize that I'm young and my body is able. I'm getting stronger even. Most people, when they come through these type of injuries and stuff, their numbers go all the way down. I've seen it. The UFC has they keep record of everybody. So I've seen people come back after a serious injury and their numbers drop down, and I've seen some people come back after a serious injury and their numbers go up. And I'm in that category with the young guys. So even though I'm a veteran, I'm still very young, and that gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, it's super exciting, man. Like you mentioned, it's kind of like a fresh start. And you mentioned the strength. So at what point did welterweight become, the division for you that you're going to return to? And because I know you were sort of toying with the idea of going back to lightweight, I believe. When did it become, yep, definitely going to be welterweight? And is that your division for good? Or is this kind of, coming back from injury, you didn't want to cut as much weight? What exactly is the plan?
A couple of reasons. One was after I seen Kamaru Usman in his last fight, I realized that he's definitely the number one pound for pound fighter in the world, especially now that Khabib is retired. And I've always gone after the biggest challenges. I think martial arts is about pushing yourself. So that gave me a lot of like, oh, okay. I see there's some competition up there. Before, welterweight was kind of in this weird standstill when Tyron Woodley was the champ, and everybody kind of played politics in order to get up there. But now that you got a serious competitor, that gave me a little bit of motivation. And it was the weightlifting. Coming off these surgeries, I did a lot of weight training on my legs. And with that, I trained the upper body too, which I've never done in my career. I haven't done since I really was in college, 18, 19 years old. So the weightlifting put on the size as muscle. And when I compared it with other people in the UFC, I noticed that my numbers were the exact same as a lot of these welterweights. And it was just time for me to stop fighting and go ahead and make that move.
So do you see yourself ever going back to lightweight? Like, it would have to be a situation where there's someone there where you're like, all right, this is a true challenge? Or is it a situation where you're pretty much done with it?
I'll come back to fight Oliveira, possibly. I feel like that's one that we need to run back. I feel like there was a lot of factors in that fight that warrant a rematch for sure. So Oliveira would be one that I would come back for, and of course Khabib would too. I would go back down if Khabib was to come back and somehow win the title and talk about defending it or something like that. That's always been somebody I would challenge myself against. But if Oliveira gets a couple more wins, for sure, I'll come back against him.
I know how much you wanted that Khabib fight. We've spoken about it so many times. That's like your white whale, the one that you always wanted. I wonder.
I'm Captain Hook out here.
Yeah. Hey man, I mean they're not the same person by any means, but you've got Khamzat Chimaev at welterweight now. And they're not exactly, like Khabib and Khamzat are not exactly allies. What do you think of Khamzat? He's kind of a new guy in the division. You're shaking your head. What do you make of him?
Nah, I mean this is just to me it's comparing apples and oranges, you know, and just because they both Russian don't mean that they're similar at all. I don't think Hamzat is how you say his name.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's not really the challenge. If anything, he's chasing me. You know, I'm chasing Khabib. He's behind me, and I'm not in the business of looking behind me.
Because I mean, it's interesting. He's fighting Li Jingliang at UFC 267, and I mean, you're not going to look past Rodriguez, but if things go to plan, it kind of looks like on that trip to the title, he could possibly match up with you in terms of trajectory-wise. But you think, nah, not someone who's really in the target view.
You know what? Honestly, I think he is the product of popularity amongst these Russian fighters. You know, that is one of the things that Khabib does bring to the game, is just this crazy popularity and these I don't know. I think there's some tomfoolery going on behind there, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of shit behind the scenes. I think there's a lot of Russian bots, if we gonna talk about it, you know. And people are like sheep. They like to follow the crowd. So if they see a whole lot of digital numbers going up, then they tend to go with those numbers. And I think Khamzat is going to benefit from that. But, you know, that's not something that I'm not interested in playing them games, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of games and not playing them, don't ever play games with your balls. They deserve the absolute best when it comes to grooming and shaving, and that is Manscaped's Lawnmower 4.0. Dude, Father's Day is around the corner. You know, treat your hairy dad to something nice. Don't rack your brain and waste your cognitive space on thinking what gift to get them this year. Just make it easy. Make it simple. Get the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 or the Performance Package 4.0. Take care of your hairy dad, or for any of you sugar babies out there, your hairy daddy. It is the best grooming tool on the market. 7,000 RPM of power, the skin-safe technology, so it doesn't cut your balls or your father's balls. You can groom anywhere you like. It's waterproof. You've got the LED light. The new 4.0, you can turn the LED light off if you don't need it. It's got the travel lock function, so it doesn't go off in your bag and waste half the battery. Treat them to the best. They're giving away 20% off with the code SUBMISSION. You can get one for dad, one for yourself. You can be matching 2 birds, 1 stone. That's what we're all about here at Submission Radio. And don't forget, when you use the code SUBMISSION, get the 20% off. You also get free shipping, so you're saving money all around. And that's just good times. Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. And dude, speaking of the code SUBMISSION, how about this? If you guys go into MyBookie right now, you can take advantage of up to a $1,000 bonus on your first deposit. Some big fights coming up this weekend. Manny Pacquiao is back. How about Jared Cannonier versus Kelvin Gastelum? So much fun stuff to bet on. Go to MyBookie today. Use that code word SUBMISSION. Get that up to a $1,000 bonus and bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And I know right now we're in lockdown, Cass, and it kind of sucks, but hopefully things get better across Australia, when we make sure that you are prepared for the next big matchup, whether it's UFC 266, the AFL, NRL, or even the NBA, starting back up again with Match Pint. Match Pint shows you the absolute best sporting pubs in your area and exactly what fixtures they're showing. Download the app now in our link description below and put an end to those annoying calls to pubs trying to find out what they're showing. Match Pint is your best mate for sport. Kev, well, we were talking about the division. I got to also get your thoughts on this rematch between Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. I mean, You mentioned how when you saw Usman, you saw that he's pound for pound one of the best guys in the division and a huge challenge for you. But how do you think this rematch goes at UFC 268 between Covington and Usman?
You know what? I mean, I'm that first fight was so close. And the thing is, Covington's had a lot of time to heal from that fight. And, you know, he had the fight with, I think he fought Tyron Woodley after that, which wasn't really much of a fight for him. You know, he didn't take any damage. He barely got pushed in that fight. So I think he's had a whole lot of time to heal. And Usman's been fighting, you know, and Usman's been through multiple training camps and multiple really big training camps. So I think skill wise that Kamaru was better, but with the factors and everything, Colby might give him a tougher fight than they had the first time. So that's one that I'm definitely interested in watching for sure.
Would it change anything for you if Colby won? Because I know you're kind of looking at part of your motivation is Usman, the fact that he's kind of like the pound for pound guy right now. Would that change anything for you if Colby was to beat him?
Yeah, I mean, if you beat the man, then you are the man. And Colby would present some challenges to me, mainly the cardio. You know, I think cardio has been a thing in the past couple years for me. It's something that I put to rest. I think, you know, you really, to be honest, and I'm going to be straight up, you really don't know until you step in there. So I'll know more on August 28th. But against a guy like Colby, he'll definitely test your cardio. So I think that's the last missing piece for me. I think skill for skill, I'm better than anybody in the world, but there's some areas that I can improve in it. And Colby probably would test them for me. So, yeah, if he beats the man, then he is the man, and I'm on his head.
All right. Well, speaking of August 28th, man, and by the way, like, super excited to see you back. So happy that everything's worked out. You've got an opponent.
Appreciate it.
Got to get this prediction from you, though, man. How do you see yourself winning it against Daniel Rodriguez?
I see myself beating Rodriguez bell to bell every time, in every situation that we in. I beat him. So it's going to be a hell of a fight. He's going to stand in there. He's going to get bloody. He's going to take some shots. But after the first exchange, he's going to realize that there's different levels to this game. And he took a major step up. Hats off to him. But I appreciate it. And I'm taking home that check.
Well, there you go, guys. The comeback, the return happens on August 28th. Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez, going to be the 29th in Australia and New Zealand because of the time difference. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Motown Phenom. Another deep chat, man. Love chatting with you, Kevin. I feel like our chats always get really deep, and just a genuine pleasure, man. Happy to see you doing well in life, man. So thank you so much for your time, and best of luck, man, on the 28th.
Always. I appreciate it, my guy. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure talking to you boys.